Okay, we're on the internet today. This class will be going on the internet, so you have to behave. Okay. What I need you to do is just have out your handout that I just passed out to you, and you can put everything else away. This is one of those important days, more important probably than others, because there's a lot of things that we need to go over, clarify. There's a lot of confusion out there about what the church says about this topic. Maybe you've even heard from other Catholics about this in a wrong way. Somebody who maybe didn't really know what the church said, but decided to tell you what the church said, and they were wrong. Okay? First of all, what do you think, or what have you heard in the past that the church says about homosexuality? That love is between a man and a woman. It's wrong because it's close to the baby aspect, right? Okay. Babies and bonding, but it's close to the baby's aspect. Okay. It's not open to life. Justine?
It's okay if they're not getting married and not performing sexual actions.
Okay. Yes, we will get into that. There's a good distinction that we need to make there. But that's out there a lot, that the church is only, as long as they're not getting married, that it is okay. We're going to talk about what the church says is okay and what the church says isn't okay. Okay. Anybody else? Anything else that you've heard about it? We're going to look at a couple of different things. Today we're going to just treat homosexuality in general. Next class, we're going to look at what the church says about homosexual marriage and adoption of children. Okay, which are two very hot button issues given the political climate right now. Those issues are being hotly debated. In the House, the Indiana House of Representatives and the Senate is working on passing an amendment to the Constitution to forbid marriage from being defined as between anything other than one man and one woman. And so there's a lot of stuff, if you read the paper, that's in there, both sides. Yeah.
I have a question. It might be kind of early.
Okay.
If the state can, or the country, I guess, can say that something is all right, such as gay marriage, but the church says it's wrong. In our eyes, even if someone is of a different religion engaging in that, isn't it still wrong for them in the long run in the eyes of the church and God? We believe that.
Yes.
Even though they are of a different belief.
There are certain issues that are beneath religion, that get to the very dignity of the person. And so the church says we stand up for this, and this is a thing that doesn't matter on what you believe, what faith background you come from. This is an important issue. Yes, you're exactly right. Yeah. Okay. What I want to do first is, you've heard before that homosexuality is condemned in the Scriptures, correct? You've heard that? Okay. I want to look at those. Okay. Let's see. Maybe. Hello? If I can get the clicker to work. That's not good. Okay, while I'm figuring this out, can somebody read the first scripture passage there from Romans? Jonathan, can you read that out loud for us, please?
Romans 1:25-27. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie and reverend and worship the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. Therefore, God handed them over to degrading passions. Their females exchanged natural relations for unnatural, and the males likewise gave up natural relations with females and burned with lust for one another. Males did shameful things with males, and thus received in their own persons the due penalty for their
perversity. Okay. All right. So that's in Romans. That's St. Paul. Okay. That's in the New Testament, obviously. All right. Now we're going back to the Old Testament. Okay. Leviticus 18:20-23. Rachel. Yes, please. Uh-huh.
to mulch, thus profaning the name of your God. I am the Lord. You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. Such a thing is an abomination. You shall not have carnal relations with an animal, defiling yourself with it. Nor shall a woman set herself in front of an animal to mate with it. Such things are abhorrent.
Very good. Thank you. If you thought that like bestiality was something that the porn industry thought of in the last 50 years, that's false. Okay, this is Leviticus, this is the Old Testament. Okay, what I want you to do there is circle the line abomination, or the word abomination there. That's an important word. That occurs throughout the Old Testament in certain places. Okay, abomination. Yeah. The whole Molech thing, too, that's kind of a precursor to abortion. Sometimes you'll hear abortion referred to as offering up your children to Molech. What they would do is offer their kids up for human sacrifice to this god Molech. And Christians and even the Jewish people, going back to the Old Testament, have always said that's wrong. But that was a very religious tradition, to offer up your children to be killed to this god, Molech. So people oftentimes refer to abortion there. This is a list of very serious things, okay? You shall not lie with a male as with a woman. Such a thing is an abomination. Okay, that's an important word, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Yes? Okay. Leviticus 20:13, same book of the Bible, Old Testament. Okay, go ahead.
If a man lies with a male as with a woman, both of them shall be put to death for their abominable deed. They have forfeited their lives.
Okay, they forfeited their lives. You can circle abominable again. Okay. Now back to the New Testament, St. Paul again, but in a different book, 1 Corinthians. Roger, can you read that for us?
Do you not know that the unjust will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor by prostitutes, nor practicing homosexuals, nor thieves, nor the greedy, nor drunkards, nor slanderers, nor robbers will inherit the kingdom of God.
Okay. That is there again, a very strong list. What happens to all of these people? What does it say at the end? They will what? They're not going to inherit the kingdom of God. Okay, so this is a serious list then of things that are going on there. 1 Timothy 1, 9 through 10. We know that the law is good, provided that one uses it as law, with the understanding that law is meant not for a righteous person, but for the lawless and unruly, the godless and sinful, the unholy and profane, those who kill their fathers or mothers, murderers, the unchaste, sodomites, kidnappers, liars, perjurers, and whatever else is opposed to sound teaching, according to the glorious gospel of the blessed God with which I have been entrusted. You've maybe heard the word sodomites before. Does anyone know what that refers to? Sean? Okay, Sodom and Gomorrah. Very good. What was the sin of Sodom? What happened to Sodom and Gomorrah? It was burned, okay, by fire and brimstone. If you ever heard like that guy was a fire and brimstone preacher, it goes back to Sodom and Gomorrah because fire and brimstone rains down on the towns of Sodom and Gomorrah and burns them alive. Everything gets annihilated by the angels. What was the sin that Sodom is getting punished for? Sodomy, which is homosexuality, basically. Okay, the abuses that they were committing against sexuality, specifically it refers there in Genesis to relationships between people of the same sex. Okay, so when you hear the phrase sodomite, it typically refers to homosexuality through that whole Sodom and Gomorrah story. Okay, now this is a very important topic, very important subject. Okay. Because what you'll hear is this, all right, look, yeah, that's great. It's in the Bible, Leviticus, St. Paul, you know. But there's a lot that you'll hear this argument said. There are a lot of crazy laws in the Bible, right? And here are some of them. I've pulled them out. Don't let cattle graze with other kinds of cattle. That's in Leviticus 19. Don't have a variety of crops on the same field. That's Leviticus 19. Don't wear clothes made of more than one fabric, Leviticus 19. Don't cut your hair or shave, Leviticus 19. Any person who curseth his mother or father must be killed, Leviticus 20. If a man cheats on his wife or vice versa, both the man and the woman must die, Leviticus 20. Psychics, wizards, and so on are to be stoned to death in Leviticus 20. Okay? What's the argument then that people make about this? Okay, don't take it literally. What else, Kayla? Don't take what literally? Typically what you'll hear is not don't take it serious. Or, I'm sorry, literally. What do you hear? What do people say? Well, yeah, all that stuff about homosexuality or whatever, insert your other issue there in there. If you want to say, something else that the Bible condemns, then they'll pull out these laws, and then what is the argument that's made? It's old.
Like Kayla said, she said it's basically like another crazy law.
Both of those, I think, together. This is used to discredit the stuff that's in other places in the Bible, right? Oh my gosh, who cares if you wear clothes made of more than one fabric, right? Okay. So surely then, what does the argument go as? All of these laws are what? They're all crazy, they're all old, they are all outdated, right? So because they had these laws, then the other laws must be nuts too. Okay, so then the stuff about homosexuality, well, yeah, it's pretty harsh language, but they're also crazy enough to say don't wear clothes made of more than one fabric. Okay? What's that?
So we're allowed to cut our hair and shave?
You are allowed to cut your hair and shave. Yes. Okay?
So like what?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It says don't shave. The Bible says don't shave.
You can take him Leviticus 19:27. You can write that down.
Yes.
What's your question, Hannah?
So like, what if, do we get punished for that?
Good question. Okay. One of the things that we need to keep in mind is, first of all right, when I look at these laws, the punishments are not all the same. Okay? It isn't, if I wear clothes made of more than one fabric, it's not considered an abomination.
Because we can't find, where do you find clothes of the same fabric and make them yourselves? Even clothes like fabric is different.
Right. We are okay wearing clothes made of more than one fabric. That's not an issue. Okay? That's the whole point. Some of these laws are very, very have been surpassed. Okay? With Jesus. Jesus came and said, although he says, look, I have the quote up here. Jesus, I came not to do away with the law, but to fulfill it. And he also says, not one letter of the law will pass away until I return. Okay? So there are some of the laws that are in the Bible, that are in the Old Testament, that the Jews had to follow, that Jesus says, those no longer apply. Right? You don't have to live according to those, because they were things that helped in that culture and that time and were important to there, but they're not things that you have to follow anymore. Okay? But he doesn't say that about every law, right? He doesn't just say everything in the Old Testament is rubbish. No, he says, I came not to do away with the law, but to fulfill it. And not one letter of it will pass away. So certain things about certain things about wearing clothes made of more than one fabric and so on and so forth, these laws don't go away, but at the same time Jesus has said, look, you don't have to follow those anymore. Okay? They were to that culture, to that time. What we have going on is the same thing with cattle grazing with other kinds of cattle. Okay? And if you let this happen, it doesn't say that that's an abomination. Okay? So the punishment level is different for different laws. So you can't just pull out one law and say, oh, well, that's crazy. Anybody ever played the game Balderdash? It's like a board game. Okay? It's like a game that our family plays sometimes when we get together for vacations and stuff, right? There are 5 categories in the game. And one of the categories is crazy local laws. Okay? And what they do is they read off a law, and it's like, in the city of Tempe, Arizona, it is illegal to put mustard on blank. Okay? There is a whole box of these laws that are crazy. And you've probably heard them, even like in Indianapolis, sometimes you're reading the Star. Hey, did you know it's still illegal to cross the street with a horse or something like that? You guys know what I'm talking about? Though there's an infinite number of those all over the place, right? I mean, you could go and Google those and read them for like 19 days, okay? They're everywhere. There's tons of laws like that, okay? So yeah, this sounds crazy. Don't let cattle graze with other kinds of cattle. Don't wear clothes made of more than one fabric. That sounds really dumb, okay? But when we take them out of their setting, lots of laws sound crazy. Lots of laws sound weird. Does that make sense? You see what's going on there? And it's not, again, it's also important to say, you know, when the old law says that they should be stoned to death, that's usually a good sign that that part is still important. It doesn't say if you're a farmer and you let cattle graze with other kinds of cattle, you should be stoned to death. Okay? It just says at one point that that is something that you shouldn't do as an observant Jewish person. But there's different levels. Just like we don't stone you if you chew gum in class. We don't kick you out of school if you chew gum in class. We do kick you out of school if you do something more serious. Okay? Do you see this? You see what I mean? This argument is out there all the time. Oh, well, there's crazy laws in the Bible, so you shouldn't have to listen to any of them. And that, first of all, we need to be able to defend that or explain what's going on there. Any questions on any of that? That's important. So it's not nearly as strong as the language leveled against certain sins like homosexuality. It's important to also note that these laws are not just in the Old Testament. They're in the Old Testament and the New Testament. St. Paul, St. Timothy, Leviticus. Okay, it's all over the Bible. It's not like it's one thing about don't wear a certain kind of clothing. Do you see that? That's important too. Lots of different Bibles, or lots of different books in the Bible. That makes sense? We good on that? Okay, so make sure you're able to explain that to somebody if they were to ask you that or if it came up on a test. Okay. What about the church? Is the church against homosexuality? If somebody could read, it's on your handout, paragraph 2357 from the Catechism.
Homosexuality refers to relations between men and between women who experience an exclusive or predominant sexual attraction to a person of the same sex. It has taken a great variety of forms through the centuries in different cultures.
Psychological.
Its psychological genesis remains largely unexplained, basing itself on sacred scripture which presents sexual acts as acts of grave depravity.
Mm-hmm.
Tradition has always declared that homosexual acts are intrinsically disordered. They are contrary to the natural law. They oppose the sexual act to the gift of life. They do not proceed from a genuine, effective, and sexual compatibility. Under no circumstances can they be approved.
Okay. We are, as I'm going to show you here in a minute, we're going to get to intrinsically disordered in a minute. Okay, that's important. We'll have our own discussion with that. What is, yeah?
Alright, so you know how psychologists and all them, they have like a theory that people are born gay?
Uh-huh.
Is that true?
We're going to
Because
get,
the church, I mean, they're making it sound like it's definitely like not okay.
yes. Okay, it's important to say something. Somebody asked in another class, or maybe it was this class, can you give us the other side? Can you give us the other side of what's being taught here? In vitro fertilization, homosexuality, okay? There really is, in my mind, there is no need to go into the time on the other side of the teaching on homosexuality because you are in it. We live in the teaching on homosexuality that is against the church. We know it. It's what we're taught. It's what's on TV shows. So for me to spend time saying, well, here's what the other side says, it would be a waste of time because you already see it. One of the things that's out there is that, of course, homosexuality is genetic. It's something that the person's born with, okay, and so on and so forth. That is the other side of this argument. Okay, there's really two sides. The church's side, okay, or you have the side where, the church's side, you have a more radical position that all homosexuals are, going to burn in hell. And then you have our society which says it's genetic, you're born that way, there's nothing that can be done about it. And so that's why we kind of, does that make sense? So to answer your question, yes, very much so. That's out there, and we're going to get into that. Sean?
Well, you say there's like the radical group and then there's a church. I think that's just one big group. You just say it in a nicer way. The Catholic Church says it in a nicer way.
Okay. So, if you want to say that, that's fine. But I'm going to hopefully make some things here that the church distinguishes themselves from the people who are out there screaming at the funerals of soldiers, saying that the military is wrong and because our country allows homosexuality or whatever. The church is not about that, and I think there's some important distinctions. If you want to see this as that, I guess I hope to change your mind, but we'll see.
So if society is saying that you're born with it,
Yep.
and the church says it's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
does the church think that if one is attracted to the same sex, that they can just change their mindset?
We'll get there.
It's just like sin.
We'll get there.
You don't have to sin. You're born with the demons and it doesn't make you sin.
Okay. Yeah, good. We're going to get into all of that here in today's class, okay? But how many of you have seen the movie V for Vendetta? Anybody seen that with Natalie Portman?
This movie.
Okay, to answer your question, Alicia, there's a scene in that movie. The whole movie is based on the idea that this radical government wants to pull Bible Christians, basically want to pull homosexuals out, send them off to camps to be re-educated, tortured, okay, and then brought back, and so that now they're fixed, okay? That is, I would argue, the far right position, the radical position on homosexuality, the sort of, not that every Bible Christian believes that, but that's typically, it's this people who believe word for word, exactly that if you lie with another man that you need to be stoned right there on the spot, that kind of stuff, okay? The church is not there, but we're going to get into that, okay? Let's look at these three things that are underlined here, okay? Intrinsically disordered, we'll get to in a minute, all right? The church is actually, it's a lot different.